Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thanks for joining us to learn more about the good life abroad. Before we jump in too far, I just want to do a bit of housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded uh, and it will be sent to you by email tomorrow. Not today, but tomorrow. There will be time for Q&A at the end of our conversation, and you'll be able to input your questions using the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. Today's webinar will be about the good life abroad in general, not about any specific city. If you have city-specific questions, feel free to send us an email at info, I-N-F-O, at thegoodlifeabroad.com. Without further ado, we're going to just jump right into this and meet our panelist, our alumni, Anne Bevilacqua, who we got a bonus 2-for-1 today.
Yep.
Her husband, David, is joining us from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Hi, Anne and David.
Hey,
Hi.
hi. Um, I'm Anne, and this is David, of course. And we're both retired librarians, and we traveled quite a lot over the years. And since we've retired, we've really done two really big trips, 2 month-long trips a year, plus little smaller kinds of other things like that. But we enjoy going to Europe a lot. I speak French, so that makes it a whole lot easier. I can sort of sometimes make my way through Italian. So again, we just love Western Europe. The people are wonderful. The food is incredible, and
The wine's good too.
the wine's good. That's David's comment.
Thank you. Thank you. And Anne and David were with us in Lisbon,
That's
Portugal, last year.
October, yeah, the month of October.
Month of October. Great. Thanks for joining us. And they'll be adding their perspective as people who have actually participated in the program. But before we get into that, I'd like to back up and talk a little bit about why I created the Good Life Abroad. I've been in the travel industry for 30 years, and I've heard from many travelers about why do we have to get on the bus and off the bus and move into the hotel and out of the hotel? And why isn't there something for us people who are just retired and have some time and to kind of go at our own pace? And it was those types of comments that I had heard over the years that inspired me to found the Good Life Abroad. And we started doing some market research, and we asked people, have you been interested or have you wanted to live abroad for some period of time? And many people said yes. But then we asked, so why haven't you? Why haven't you just moved abroad? And there was a lot of pain points and that prevented people from living out their dream. What happens to them? Lonely, medical, all these different, these were the key pain points that we pulled out from our market research. So we thought, how could we solve these pain points for people? And what we came upon was the idea that community was at the core of it. And if you could have community, it makes it more simple to do, social, and feel safer. And so we'll get into the details of the Good Life Abroad program, but that was sort of the genesis of how this whole thing started. How do we allow people to live out that dream of living abroad and provide this sort of safety net while still providing what is fundamentally an independent experience? We offer this program in 13 cities around the world. If you're good at math and you counted quickly, you'd say, well, Andrew, there's only 12 on your screen, but we just recently added Rome, Italy. And for those of you who've been following the news, we just have a new pope. So Rome is going to be a very timely place to visit. And we do have a few spots left. We're doing this in May. We do have some spots left for our September program, I think 3 spots left. So if you're interested in Rome, Italy, now is the time to jump on that. So how does Good Life Abroad work? Basically, we provide upscale apartments vetted for the needs of people 55 and older. Upscale does not mean luxury. It means it's not budget, but it's not luxury. It's above budget. It's nice, and we'll get more into the apartments. We'll show photos and whatnot. So you have your apartment, There's a community of like-minded travelers, people who love travel and cultural immersion, who sort of live around you. Some live in the same building, some live in a building 5, 10 minutes away. We provide a local community manager, insurance, medical insurance, and there's community activities and events happening. So that's fundamentally how it works. And if people want to do optional, sign up for a yoga studio or a gym, they can do that as well. But let's dive into the apartment specifically, because that's a big question for a lot of people. So, where do we live? In most European cities, most European capitals, there's the historic center, the cobblestone streets right in the middle, down the old part of town. That's where all the tourists gather, and that gets really crowded. We're not there. We try to position all of our apartments in most of the cities just outside of that historic core. Usually a 15 to 20-minute walk or a short metro ride or a short bus ride into there. But we really want to have the experience of where actual local people in that city live. Not people don't live in the cobblestone streets full of tourists. They live just outside of that. So that's where we try to position our apartments in all of the cities, close to grocery stores, restaurants, local services. So you can really kind of have live like a local, do your grocery shopping, etc. And people all live near each other. So here's some images of apartments. But I'll turn it over to Anne and David. Can you just tell us a little bit about your apartment, kind of your perceptions?
Sure, sure. Initially, we were given an apartment to look at, and it had a TV in the bedroom. And it was a one-bedroom apartment, but the TV was in the bedroom. And David and I have different sort of sleep schedules, which mean that he wakes up very early and I go to bed late. And usually at late nights, I'm watching Netflix or something. And when I say he goes to bed early, it's more like 9 o'clock. So it's really pretty early, especially by European standards. So we said, this doesn't really work for us. And they were able to find us an apartment, a beautiful place in Lisbon, with the TV in the living room. And my other concern was I needed a walk-in kind of shower, not where you have to sort of jump over a tub, side of the tub. They were also able to find that for us. So they worked very well for us.
It was a nice one bedroom, reasonable sized kitchen, fully. We cook a lot when we travel. Probably half of the evening meals are things we cook. So we had a good kitchen, and in fact, our place had this little backyard. We didn't have any windows on the street, but we had this little backyard in between buildings, and so it was a really pleasant, nice apartment. Not luxury by any means, but certainly adequate and very, very comfortable.
Great, thank you. Yep. Now, I'll state for the record, not all of them have backyards. In fact, that was sort of a rare find, but
It
they
was.
all do have come fully furnished, have the smart TV, you can stream Netflix, have crockery, utensils for cooking, and stove tops and microwave. Um, and when you book with us, as Anne mentioned, you will be assigned a program coordinator who coordinates for that specific city, and then they will share with you the details of the apartment in advance, usually a few months in advance, so that if there's any sort of special requests, now we can't, accommodate all requests. I want a balcony, I want a backyard, but things specifically around mobility, we can take that into account. People can't do stairs or people can't do, the tub. That's not a problem. We can usually work within a certain set of parameters for very special requests. There is a process if people wanted to do like upgraded apartments for additional cost to have certain features, but that's a separate process. For the most part, all the apartments in a city are more or less the same. We work with large property management firms in these cities that have hundreds of apartments under management. They're more or less kind of similar decor and whatnot, similar level of amenities. And so that's what we strive for, is more or less a similar standard for everyone. And these little things around tubs and televisions and steps are things that we can work with our guests to find appropriate housing. People often ask if I have a guest coming, if I have a two-bedroom apartment and our kid wants to come visit because I heard, mom and dad are going to be in Europe for a month. And so guests are allowed to participate or to come stay in your apartment. However, we ask that they don't participate in all the community activities. And this is really because a lot of people do have guests. And what we're trying to do is foster a sense of community. And if you have guests coming from all the time, random people, you don't even know who's in the community anymore. So we're just asking, if you have guests, they could stay in your apartment. It's your apartment. Have a lot of fun with them. However, for the community activities, we're trying to preserve a sense of community around it. Activities. So we have these activities events. You can get a sense from the list there of the types of things that we do. And I'll even share with you, this is sort of a prototypical schedule. This is not a specific schedule for any one city, but more or less all of our city programs function like this. You arrive the first day, you kind of get checked in your apartment, get settled in, you're tired. The next morning, we'll do an orientation. And during that orientation, we'll kind of teach you how to live in that city, to take the public transportation, to where to get the groceries or housewares that you might want to do to decorate your apartment or spruce up your apartment. Then we break. That evening, we come together for a welcome party, get to know the other people in your group. And then we sort of fall into a rhythm of a Tuesday lunch club, Wednesday, some kind of cultural activity, maybe a walking tour or a cooking class or a workshop of some kind. And Thursdays, we meet for happy hour. Now, the idea behind the lunch club and the happy hours is not just here's a sandwich, have lunch. The idea is to introduce you to local foods. That's one of the purposes. The other is our community managers who run the program are thoughtfully selecting the different restaurants or places we're going to do these events in order to take you out to different parts of town that you might not have stumbled upon on your own. And lastly, the idea, especially with the lunch club, is you can see on the schedule, we don't program anything in for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. So people have gone off and explored and done all sorts of things. Some people may have gone to another town, or others have just explored in the city. And Tuesday's a nice time to come together as a community and, hey, what have you been up to? Tell us more. And people have discoveries they want to share. And it's a really nice time. So the lunch club is more than just like having lunch. There's sort of more thought behind it. And same with all of these activities. But I'll turn it over to Anne and David if you want to talk about some of your favorite activities or how you perceive them.
Well, I had a great time with the Thursday afternoon happy hours because, well, we didn't have any, major agenda. We weren't doing a, cooking class or having to really think about the food that we were eating. We were just sitting there having a drink and everybody talking and reviewing the week or plans for the weekend, as Andrew said. And then we'd kind of break up. Our group was maybe 14, I think, in total. And then we'd kind of break up into smaller groups to go out to dinner after the happy hour. And so you could just sort of mix and match people in a way. You kind of like, oh, we haven't gone out with Don yet. Let's go with them for something. So it was just a great way of getting to know the people in your group.
Yeah, it's a really nice balance of activities with a group and a fair amount of free time. We did we did a full day venture out to wineries in the south of Lisbon, and then went out for an evening, a night in a hotel out on the coast, the Atlantic coast, and almost everybody went to Porto one way or the other, although we did not. So it's that balance of you do what you want to do, and even the days when there are activities, you've got a lot of free time around it. So you're not getting up at the crack of dawn, which Anne doesn't like at all, and so it's just a really good mix. And the activities are in some cases like the cooking class. We would have done that one way or the other if we were in a city for a week. But we did a tile thing in Lisbon, and Lisbon's full of tiles, so that was kind of fun. So some of the things would be things you would do on your own, and some of them are things that you probably wouldn't. And the guides that they brought in,
Mm.
we did a trip to Sintra, which is just a magical city outside of Lisbon, and the local guide that they had who did 2 or 3 trips with us around the city. He was almost too good. You know, his tours kept going and going, and we had to like beg him to stop. Um, but so the balance is really a nice part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I should mention that all these activities are optional. You don't have to go to them, right?
Mm.
You can be as social as you want. You can be as solo as you want, and there's real no obligation to have to go to everything, but it's just sort of there. Um, the next aspect of the program is actually community, and I've mentioned this that there's other people, but what do I specifically mean by community? So for starters, it's cohort based. There's a start date to the program. Everyone arrives on the same day and kind of gets set up. And as I mentioned, there's an orientation. But even before you arrive, we do a Zoom call similar to this, where everyone in your group comes together with the community manager, the local staff person, and you kind of get to know each other. And we create also a WhatsApp. If you're not familiar with WhatsApp, it's a text messaging app that's used pretty much everywhere in the world. Not so much in the United States, but it's very, very, very popular in Europe. Everyone in Europe uses it. And it's as you can see in the screenshot, there's one channel for announcements. That's where our local community manager sends out one-way messages. Hey, we're going to meet here. We're going to do this at this time. Here's a link to Google Maps, how to, and how to get there. But then there's subgroups underneath. And as you can see in the screenshot, there's some random ones that were there, but member to member, where members kind of community members communicate with each other. Solo travelers might have a group because about a third of our group are solo travelers and they want to meet up. Fitness, running. We've had people start book clubs, and we've had people set up a group just to create a potluck. These groups are really the tools of our community members to create little groups around shared affinities. And I think this is really beautiful because this is where the sense of community comes into play. I'll just share a little story. There was a fella in Barcelona, and I was just there recently, who created 2 groups. He created cathedral lovers and sports bars. And I said, Doug, are you serious? Like, are you joking around? He goes, no, no, no. One of the reasons we joined the Good Life Abroad is my wife loves cathedrals. She'll go to every church, and I hate that. And I just want to go to sports bars. So I thought here she could find people to go to cathedrals with, and I could find people to go to sports bars with. And it was like great because that's exactly the type of thing where you can find people who share different affinities for you. And that was sort of a little tongue in cheek, but we often have people creating groups around architecture and art, specifically like in Florence, Italy, so much art to see. And so it's really a nice way to connect with other people. And what you find, and I'll let Anne and David kind of share their experience, but is that the community sort of takes on a life of its own, right? We have this sort of scaffold of activities, but then what happens is the community, hey, I want to do this. Or, David mentioned people going to Porto, or people connecting on different things. So maybe you could share a little bit about your experience, Anne, and David, around community and how that sort of took off in your program.
Yeah, when you're in a place for a month, it seems like it might be a long time, but it's really not. And you can't really expect to, you know, know a lot of local people. You might go to the same coffee shop every day and kind of get to know the person there, but really having, the expat community together to share, you're sharing so much that you're there at the same time. You all came from the US, you're all, there are a lot of things that we have in common. And so we did all kinds of subgroups. We did potlucks, really great potlucks at different people's apartments, including in our backyard. So it's just great. And the thing is that we continue to this day with our groups. We moved it to a chat. US based message systems that we normally use, but we have this group chat for different things, and people are constantly saying, oh, Malati went to Paris, oh, wow, tell us about how it was. So we're still having this conversation with people that we met in October.
That's great. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the nature of our community because people ask me that, like, so who's in this community? It's all about community. I think the thing that I hear often, very often, is, "Wow, I have made some lifelong friends from this program." And I think it's because the one thing they all have in common is a deep love for travel. The idea of going to spend a month in a place is very different from the person who wants to do the see all of Italy in 6 days, 7 nights. It's a different type of person who really wants to go deep and do an immersion, and I think that brings special types of people on the Good Life Abroad. Um, and so there's a few facts on the slide. On average, about 15 people in a group. On the low end, it could be 10. On the high end, it could be in the low 20s. I think Anne mentioned earlier that it was 14 people in her group. The average age is about 67 and a half. I mentioned 30% are solo travelers. It varies from group to group, and you can always contact our office if you're interested in a specific group and want to know if there's going to be other solo travelers. About 90% are from the United States, 9% from Canada, and then we get this stray Australian or Brit who comes on the program, about 1%. And as I mentioned, the love of cultural immersion and being well traveled. I think most people are very well traveled, and that makes the group really fun and interesting. Now, you've heard about the community manager. I just want to touch on this a bit because this is a very special part of the program. I think our community managers are what make it really excellent experience. The community manager is a local staff person who really has a few different roles. One is they're obviously organizing the activities and events that the community can come to, but they're also sort of like, for lack of a better word, a concierge, even though they're not a hotel concierge by any means, in terms of giving you guidance and advice um, oh, I want to go to Porto for the weekend. Should I rent a car? Should I take the train? Should I take a bus? What should I do? And also suggesting things to the group that you might be interested in. Like, oh, there's a jazz concert here tonight or tomorrow. There's something happening, some local event that you might not be aware of, but this person does know because they're kind of clued into all the local happenings. So there's this sort of multiple hats that they wear, and they're available using WhatsApp messaging during business hours, Monday through Friday. So they're a resource for you while you're in there for a month, and you kind of have that backup no matter what. Ann and David, if they're kind of want to talk about your experience with our community manager and during your program.
Yeah, so Jen, who's the top person on the left, is the manager is in Lisbon, and she and her husband and children have been there for some time. She's American. I don't know if her husband's Portuguese or not, but has Portuguese heritage, and she would troubleshoot stuff, and I think she would, if it was like Friday, she would get on the WhatsApp and say, there's a market coming up on Saturday in this park. You may want to try it. Or if you're going to go to this town, get off a stop early and walk along the ocean to the town rather than going all the way in on the train. So just really good advice. And at one point, I went in the morning to brush my teeth and there was no water. And which I guess happens in Lisbon on occasion. And she said, well, it's probably in the neighborhood. So I went out for my morning walk, and sure enough, they were digging a hole outside the hotel around the corner, and the water was back by noon. So she made sure it wasn't just the apartment, and so it was really, it adds a lot to the program to just have somebody who is there, can give you good advice. It's really key. And Jen was just spectacular.
She was, yeah.
Anne, any thoughts on your end?
Yeah, well, one interaction that I had with where Jen helped us a lot was that I had gotten sick, which happens, and she tuned us into Doctors SA, which is a European telemedicine service, and it hooks you up with a number of doctors, and you can select whoever you want, and talk to them, and then they can prescribe medication for you. So it was, I had never heard of, in all of our travels, we've never heard of anything like this before. I don't even know how recently it was created, but Jen knew about it, and that saved the day for us.
That's great. Yeah, one of the things that people often say to me is they like this idea that if something happens in terms of medical, that there's someone there who can connect you to the appropriate medical resources, and that we provide that travel medical insurance built into your program fee. So that makes it really easy if there is something, God forbid, something serious, that it can be treated and then handled by the travel medical insurance. Um, just a few sort of parting shots here. One of the things we want to make very clear to people who are considering the good life abroad is that while we don't have an age limit, we do want to make it clear that this is an independent program. This is not a tour. This is not a tour. There's no bus picking you up in the morning and taking you around. So you really do need to be able to be independent, walk on very uneven surfaces for miles at a time. It's Europe. People take public transportation. They walk a lot, and Lisbon is uneven surfaces and hills and slippery surfaces. You name it. Um, there has been some talk. People have been asking about this. Is there a visa required for Americans to go to Europe? There's been some talk about this. I think it's actually been punted into the future. So no visa is required to go to Europe. And this thing that they've been talking about is not even really a visa, it's an electronic authorization. So when it does come into a play, you will simply go to a website, input your passport information, pay a few bucks, and then within minutes it's approved. So there is no visa required to go to Europe. It's very straightforward, even when this does get implemented. Physical requirements or any sort of words of caution, maybe, Anne and David, that you would want to offer people who are considering this?
Yeah, I mean, well, Lisbon is a very hilly city, and they pave all their sidewalks with these black and white stones that, and I can't remember which one gets more slippery more quickly, but it's one or the other. And so, you do have to be able to do that. The public transportation, at least in Lisbon, the subways were really good, and so you can get around. And the bus systems in Europe are generally pretty good too. So there are ways to manage long distances, but certainly you need to expect to be walking as just as a couple of miles. I think a couple of our city tours were like that, and certainly up and down hills if you're in a place like Lisbon. But you don't have to be able to run a marathon or a triathlon like Andrew, but uh, you want to be reasonably fit and able to handle uneven surfaces.
Yeah, great. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I would think maybe tell us about some of the challenges or difficulties that you encountered in the program, if there were any. I want to just give very authentic feedback to our viewers. Were there things where you thought, man, like that was hard for me? Because there's things that might be hard for you will be hard for other people, and we should kind of warn them. I'll tell you for an example, for instance, we often will hear one of the complaints is, I wish I had a dryer. I don't, because in Europe, clothes dryers are not very common. And so you have a washing machine. I think in your apartment, you had a washing machine. In most apartments, there's a washing machine, but there's not a dryer, but a drying rack.
Yeah.
And, we'll get complaints and we'll say, no, but we've been very clear about that. This is not for everyone. This is, I think, maybe the challenge of most when we have complaints where people are not clear. And you're not staying in a hotel. You're staying in an apartment, a local apartment for a month. Maybe you've done it for a few days in an Airbnb. This is for a month, and it is different. It is fundamentally different to be in a European apartment compared for most of our people who come from the United States. They have a couple thousand square foot house and a laundry room and all this space and stuff. But this is very different. So I know that for many people there are challenges. I don't know if there were any challenges for you that you'd want to share with the group.
Well, as I said earlier, we do long term vacations. We just got back from almost 4 weeks in Italy yesterday, in fact. And So we're kind of used to a certain way of traveling, and with our clothing, we only do carry on, and we get things that are easy to dry, so heavy cottons, these polo shirts that David is wearing now. He bought one that was a thinner travel polo shirt, and then he bought one of these heavier ones. And the thinner one would dry instantly, and there's the other one, it would take a day and a half to dry. So you have to think in terms of, well, I'm going to be responsible. You're not going to be able to carry 30 pairs of underwear or things like that to take you through the entire trip. You're going to have to do washes. And so think about what you're bringing, and in terms of how easily it will be to dry.
Yeah, and that's how all the Europeans do it. So
Yeah.
it's not like you're special that you don't have a dryer. I mean, we had a balcony above our back piece, and often it would be sunny and it would drip, and then you would go out and look, and there would be the people on the 2 or 3 floors above us with their clothes out on their balcony, dripping on our backyard. So, think about how you're going to pack and what you're going to take in that regard. But I don't think we had any particular
Mm-mm.
difficulties. We had a great grocery store right up the street. Even in a small grocery store, you get a pretty good selection of foods, and the quality of stuff that they have in Europe, in my experience, is generally at least as good as it is in Whole Foods, and often better in terms of produce. And it was a small kitchen, and the one thing I had the biggest problem with was finding the right capsules for our coffee machine,
Yeah.
because I couldn't identify an espresso, right? And I bought some bigger things, but that kind of stuff happens. So there was nothing that was particularly problematic in our experience.
But you mentioned a couple of things, and I just want to kind of call them out for the viewers. Like, for example, because you know, I'm I never hear all the good stuff that happens. I always hear the complaints that come to me. So, but like for example, you mentioned going out to buy your Nespresso. The common thing people say, I ran out of capsules for my coffee maker. Can you send me more? Like, we're not a hotel. We give you enough to get started in your apartment. Maybe there's a roll of toilet paper and maybe some paper towel and a few capsules, but we don't provide consumables. This is your apartment. It's up to you to then purchase the things that you need. You also mentioned, and I think it's great that you travel very lightly. Um, it's important to know this about yourself if you are someone who, and we have had people show up with 4 large checked suitcases, and then I will get the complaint, there's not enough hangers and cabinet space. Well, you're in a European apartment. They do not have walk-in closets like they have in the US. So I understand that you have paid a program fee, and it's not an insignificant amount, but this is just not how these apartments are set up. And it's not just us, it's Europe to some degree. And I said to this specific person, well, we're trying to offer this experience like a local. She goes, I know, I'm just having trouble being a local. I'm American. And I said, well, this is a reflection that you should do. And I'd say this to everyone. Is this something that's really right for you? And I believe this program is not for everyone. It's not for everyone. I think you really need to think about, do you really want to live in a European apartment for a month and kind of do all the things? Because it will slightly be uh, there might be some slight discomfort. Now, I happen to believe that part of travel and part is going a little out of your comfort zone. And it's in that process of going out of your comfort zone is where growth happens. And I don't want to get all philosophical on this, but I think that travel is a wonderful vehicle for personal growth because you kind of learn about yourself in the process and you learn about the rest of the world and other ways of living, et cetera, et cetera. I'll get off the philosophy unless Anne or David wants to jump in. Feel free.
So I'll tell you the one issue that we had that we had to solve, which was we wanted a nightlight for the
Oh, yeah.
bathroom. And it was a bit of an adventure to find the right place in the right department store, to find a European nightlight. So what we learned from that is we always now travel with a European nightlight. So, but it was kind of a fun adventure. It,
Jen gave us some a list of stores she thought might have them, and then ultimately we did find one in a children's like nursery kind of store,
in the baby
baby
section of a
section.
department store, and unfortunately we forgot to bring it home. So, uh,
All right, young at heart. Great. So just in terms of the details, so the program fee, you can find it on our website, but it includes all the community activities, 30 nights. People ask it's a month, but what does that mean? It means 30 nights. You leave on the 31st day. The Wi-Fi, high-speed Wi-Fi, all the support from the community manager, the travel medical insurance, the evacuation insurance. It does not include your airfare. It does not include airport transfers. It does not include groceries, coffee pods, additional toilet paper, you name it. There's some optional tours and weekend things people might want to do that does not include it. You can, if you go to our website, thegoodlifeabroad.com, and click on book now, you'll see all the different program cities, the dates, and the pricing varies based on which city. Obviously, a place like London or Paris is going to be a lot more expensive than, say, Sardinia. So there's a wide range of prices based on also on the season, the year, number of people, the size of the apartment. So people say, what does it cost? It varies on many different variables, and therefore I encourage you to go and just click around. You can just click in and start filtering by say city, season, dates, etc., and you can see all the pricing. Our now I bring up the sort of refund policy and the payment schedule because what we found is that a lot of people like this program and they book in many cases we're sold out for many cities in 2025, and they're booking for a year in advance or more. And so the way it works, you pay $395 up front and you pay 50% 30 days later, and then you pay the other half a few months before you go. So it's kind of 50% up front and 50% before you go. Now, up to 120 days prior, you can cancel. That 50% you paid gets refunded to you, and your deposit gets converted to a credit, and you can move it to another program. Not a problem. And then there's sort of a declining amount of refund as we get closer and closer to the program. And so my point is that you can book, and then until 120 days prior, if something happens, you can cancel and get that back. So there's, we understand that life happens and that you may need to postpone your program and move your deposit. We also encourage folks to look at trip cancellation insurance because, again, life happens and things happen even at the last minute. And at that point, we're not able to offer a refund. And so we encourage people to get that. Now, I mentioned that many programs are sold out. We're doing this in May of 2025. We do have some space, as I mentioned, in Rome, in Prague, Vienna, and I believe one or two other cities. But a lot of things are sold out. So at this point, people are now booking for 2026. So I just want to kind of put that on people's radar. That is it for the formal part of this conversation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and David and Ann, if you have any thoughts you just want to share with the audience before we get into question and answers, we can do that. Otherwise, I'll look at the Q&A that's down at the bottom. Okay, we have someone here saying, please address the single traveler. And by that, we'll refer to them often as solo travelers. And as I mentioned, about 30% of our travelers are solo travelers. They really do love this program because as a solo traveler, you still have community. You're not on your own, and you have someone looking out for you, a community manager, if God forbid something were to happen. But maybe Ann and David, can you talk about like the solo travelers in your group? I know often there's a fear about like, oh, I'm going to be on my own. There's going to be all these couples, and they're just doing their own thing, and I'm just kind of stuck by myself at the third wheel. Ann, David?
Absolutely. No, I mean, we just had a great combination of people, and it didn't really matter at all. We had oh gee, I can't
So
think of how many we
the
had.
numbers in our group, we had 3 husband and wife couples. We had 2 pairs of women who were traveling together who were friends from where they lived. And then we had four people who were independent solo travelers, two of whom had single apartments, and the other two people shared an apartment. They hadn't met each other except maybe on Zoom before they arrived, and
They had a great experience,
they had fun.
each
And I would have,
bedroom and each you had their own bathroom. So, it was a great apartment for them. And yeah,
yeah, I would not have bet that they would have meeting the two people for the first time. I would not have imagined that they would have made it through the month, but they had a great time. So I think the community works really well in that context. And my guess would be that each community would have some number of solo travelers. So you're most likely to have fellow people in your situation as part of the group.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is because there's sort of the intention behind the entire program is a community experience. So people get that. And I see it all the time. As I mentioned, I was just in Spain a couple of weeks ago, and there was a couple and a solo traveler. They went out, and well, a bunch of people went out. In the end, they were kind of walking home, and the solo traveler was going that way a block, and the couple was going that way a block, and the couple just kind of walked her home. It was a safe place. There was no like threat or anything. But I think the beauty of the community is that we're all looking out for each other, right? You have a community manager, but people are looking out, like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Oh, you're not feeling so hot. You're kind of maybe under the weather, or I'm gonna have a potluck. Come on over. It's a really a beautiful thing, this community, I think. This sense of people trying to be inclusive, and that's something I would say defines the community. Very inclusive, regardless of who you are. Okay, do you provide help finding local tours, classes? Yes, that's one of the things the community manager does is they're there to, and what we instituted now, I don't know if we did it on your session, Anna David, but in the first couple days of every program, we'll meet one-on-one with you to just say, hey, what do you want to get out of this month? And help you sort of make a plan like, oh, I want to take yoga classes, or I want to go to wine country. Can you help me? And we'll sit down, we'll sort of make a plan to help you get the most out of that month. Do apartments have hair dryers? Some do, some don't. Yours,
we
and
did.
you
Yeah.
did, yeah. Most of them do. Most of them do. That's pretty standard. But again, depends on the city. And when you book and you get your apartment from our staff, we now have a very detailed record of like what amenities are included in your apartment. You'll be able to see that. You'll be able to see photos, et cetera, et cetera. You need travel adapters. Yes. Yes, you're going to Europe, different everything. You'll need your travel adapters. We do not provide that. We provide an apartment. Your last slide mentioned a new requirement for travel to Europe. This has been delayed to 2026. That is correct. This has been punted. It's been punted in the past. It's punted again. It is not currently in effect. Ann and David were just in Italy, and they did not need to do that.
Right.
Do you accept credit cards? Is there an extra charge for credit cards? To book the Good Life Abroad, we do accept credit cards. There is no extra charge for credit cards. Are there language classes? I would put it this way. Our goal is to help people be able to get through like the basic phrases in any country. I think it's being a good traveler, learning some of the basic phrases, 5, 10 phrases, just so you can do your greetings and whatnot. But there's not actually language classes. Now, that is something that's optional if someone wants to do it. That David or Ann, do you want to speak to this at all?
Well, we did have a cheat sheet, and Jen went through some very important key phrases, and that usually goes a fair way. If you just go in and say "Bon dia," you can talk to people in the different places. Where when you're in a shop, 90% of the people, I'm guessing in a big city in Europe will be able to interact with you at some level of English.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, actually, speaking on the language barrier, you did not have a language barrier, it seems.
Well, neither of us speak Portuguese, and I probably can't even remember the five phrases now, but I deal with that all the time in Europe, whether I'm in France or Italy or wherever. And so I didn't find that to be a particular burden. I mean, most of in a big city, most people in stores have had enough experience with English speakers that you can get by without much trouble, was my experience.
And I would add, Google Translate's your friend.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the thing now where you can hold your camera or your camera over something written like on a menu and it translates for you. It's like magic for me, but I'm using it all the time and it's really pretty amazing.
They
Technology.
don't have Portuguese yet, though.
They don't have it in Portuguese. Okay.
Not yet.
Can you talk about dates, Vienna? I don't have them off the top of my head, but again, if you go to our website and click book now, and then you can, there's a drop down menu and you can pull down the city you're interested in and then select it, and it'll show you the dates for that city and the different prices. Is apartment maintenance included if something breaks, like when booking through any property management company? I know you had the water issue. Did you have any other maintenance requests?
No.
I mean, the cleaning service got late once, and Jen had to chase them to get our apartment cleaned. But besides that, we had no problems at all.
Yeah. Yeah, across the board, in all of the cities, we do work with property management companies, and you're you're able to contact them to file like a service request. My toilet's not flushing or something happened, and then they'll take care of it. So there is a property management function. We don't own the apartments. We are basically subleasing an apartment on your behalf when you join the program. Um, and so there is a property management company involved as well. Where do visitors sleep? Is there a sofa bed for them? The site says 2 beds. Does that mean, okay. So on our website, when you click book now, and there's options, 1 person, 1 bed, 2 people, 1 bed, 2 people, 2 beds. That's just short on for our 2 bedrooms. So you have 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom apartments. And that means 2 separate bedrooms if you're on our booking site. Where do visitors sleep? Most apartments have a limitation on the number of visitors that can be there. This is a limitation set by the property management firm. They don't want 4 people packing into a 1 bedroom apartment. So I don't know, Ann and David, did you have visitors while you were there?
No,
Mm.
we had a
Um,
couch that someone might have slept on, but not comfortably.
Yeah. Most of
Tired.
the time when people are planning to have visitors, they will get a 2 bedroom apartment and then they'll have guests come. Often they have kids, maybe a kid and a spouse or a grandkid who comes to visit, and then there's a separate bedroom and they stay there. I traveled with my dog. Okay, I traveled with my dog. She's been to France and Spain. I understand you don't offer pet-friendly accommodations, but can I stay in the area and still be part of the program? This is a good question. Yes, we've had enough. We have a lot of issues with different apartments, different pet policies. So unfortunately, we're not able to offer pets as a policy anymore because it's just too complex with every apartment being different. However, there is an option in most cities that if you want to book your own apartment, and this is something we don't advertise front and center on our homepage, but it's something that we will do for people who have very specific requirements, that you can pay us a community fee, participate in all the activities, everything you get, except the apartment, and you can go and get your own apartment. And it's then your issue with whoever you're renting from. We don't get involved in that. Um, and we will, if you book that option, we will give you a map and show you where all the other people are staying so that you can look and book something in a similar area. Are your refunds from you or the travel insurance, all caps? If you book with us and you cancel before 120 days and it's all refundable, that is coming from us. We're just refunding you. If you book with us, buy the travel insurance, and cancel a week before you're going. At that point, per our policy, it is not refundable. That money has gone. We've signed a lease for an apartment, and these leases are not broken. It's not a hotel room where you can say, we're not coming. We've now leased an apartment in your name. We've paid that money months prior. That money is gone. Then you have the trip insurance, you claim that, and then the refund comes from the insurance company. That's how it works. So if it's within our policy, we refund it. If it's outside of the refund window, then you go to the insurance company. Where in Florence are the apartments? They are on the Oltrarno side of Florence. There's the side where the Duomo and all the main tourist attractions are. Just across the bridge is the Oltrarno side. That's where we stay there. What's the price differential between staying 4 weeks and the maximum time 12 weeks? I would say contact our office for this question, because what happens is it's more or less the same activities that are repeated month after month. So maybe after a month, you don't want to do the same thing again. You just want to stay on. And I think after a month, you also get a really good sense of the city. And you're like, okay, I kind of know how to do things. So some people say, like, I just want the apartment. I don't necessarily want the whole program. We can make an arrangement for that as well. And other people who do back-to-back programs, they'll often do a month in one city and then another city and then another city. And that's very common. We get people who do multiple cities. And then what happens is after your first program, you're then an alumni, and alumni get automatic discounts on all future programs. And so therefore future programs are discounted because you've done one program. Is there any cost, like a copay to see a doctor? No, to see a doctor, you're paying for the whole thing on your credit card, and then you're taking your receipt and you're submitting to the insurance company for reimbursement. And I sprained my ankle once when I was in Europe. I had to go to the doctor, get an x-ray, see the whole thing, and it cost me $75. So you're not going to go bankrupt in Europe to get any medical care. It's very easy to put on your credit card and then get refunded. Okay, you booked for Paris. Okay, contact our office if you have very specific questions about your trip. info@thegoodlifeabroad.com. Everyone, once they book, should have received an email from us that says schedule a welcome call with our onboarding coordinator. And then as you get closer in, we get more and more contact with details about your apartment, about packing, et cetera, et cetera. Do the apartments have safes? No, for the most part, they don't have safes. No, that's so we encourage you to, bring maybe a little lock for your suitcase or whatnot. This is an apartment, just like you might rent an apartment anywhere, not a hotel room. I want to be very clear. Are the apartments in a city close to each other? And David, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, our apartment was not in the same building as any of the other people in our group, but we were only
5 minutes.
5 minutes away from them. And we did there were a number of people all in one building. I think they were the one bedroom kinds of apartments. And that was kind of fun. We actually we went to that building for one of the potlucks. And so we got to see what those apartments look like. And so not I'd say you guys try to keep everybody really close by.
Yep. In most cases, almost every case at the far end, people are 10, 15 minutes away. In almost all cases, or most cases are 5 minutes away. And in many cities, there's a building where there's a lot of people in one building, but not always the case. Um, okay, we're wrapping up here. I see one new question just appeared. I see locations for Greece 2026. That program has not been announced yet. It just says future destinations. It doesn't necessarily, I don't think it's announced 2026 yet. It's something that's on our radar, has not been announced. If you're on our mailing list, you will get an email when any new destinations are announced. Right now, Rome is our newest one, and that's in September. How long has this business been in operation? Fair question. So the Good Life Abroad is a division of a company that I started 20 years ago. The larger company is called Terra Education. Within Terra, there's different business units of travel. We started out doing student travel. We moved into family travel. Within there's a division called Discover Core. I founded that over a decade, which was family travel. And what that eventually evolved into was intergenerational family travel. And that means the grandparents, the kids, and the grandkids, where the grandparents pay for everyone usually. And it was during that process of going on a lot of those programs that I would meet the grandparents often, and who would say, hey, this is great. I love this, taking our grandkids and our kids and having a meaningful vacation together. why isn't there something for us where we can kind of do it at our own pace? And that was through those conversations that sparked the genesis of the Good Life Abroad. We're just about time. I want to thank you, Anne and David, so much for participating and sharing your experiences with everyone. This was lovely. Yep.
One thing I'd like to add is that we love the program so much that we signed up for Split in October of this year, and thinking about like maybe doing another one in 26. So we keep coming back.
Great. That's great to hear. And someone mentioned something about for lower cost of accommodations for singles, and this is a great example of where this idea where you could book your own lodging, because we realize, some people are very picky and want super high end, and we understand that. And we have other people who say, no, I'm a little more budget conscious. And I'm just by myself. Can I just get like a studio or something? So this is why we're starting to allow this idea of where you could book your own lodging and join the community and have all the benefits of being part of the community. But again, the reason people come to us is for this sort of turnkey solution where like, I don't want to think about it. I just trust you guys. So that's, our fundamental value proposition to people. But we do get that, understand that some people have different needs and different wants, and we can accommodate that. And in terms of, do we post these webinars? We have posted past webinars on YouTube, and this specific one is being recorded and will be emailed to everyone who is registered tomorrow morning. You will get this in your a link to a recording of this in your email. So again, thank you everyone for taking the time to learn more about the Good Life Abroad. We appreciate it. Thank you, Ann and David, and take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.